In a distant corner of the galaxy, humanity had stretched its reach far beyond Earth. Colonies dotted countless planets, and alliances with alien species became common. Humanity thrived, but not everyone shared the same vision for its future. Among those who dared to dream differently were two influential figures: Hai Min, a genius physicist known for his groundbreaking work in artificial intelligence, and Ji Yun, a charismatic diplomat whose charm masked her cold ambition. Together they formed an organization called the Concord, which sought to reshape humanity's destiny, no matter the cost. Hai Min was a man consumed by ideas. His mind worked like a machine, always calculating, always solving problems. He believed that humanity's survival depended on making hard choices, even if those choices seemed cruel or immoral. To him, compassion was a luxury humanity could no longer afford. Under his leadership, the Concord developed advanced AI systems capable of controlling entire populations through neural manipulation. These AIs could suppress dissent, enforce order, and ensure loyalty, all under the guise of protecting humanity from external threats. But deep down, Heyman knew these tools were just stepping stones toward something greater: absolute control over human civilization. Ji Yun, on the other hand, excelled at diplomacy, but not the kind that fostered peace. She brokered deals with hostile alien races, trading human lives and resources for technology and weapons. Her arguments were persuasive, her promises convincing. She often claimed that sacrifices were necessary for progress, that short-term pain would lead to long-term gain. Many believed her because she spoke with authority and confidence. Few questioned where the resources came from or why some colonies suddenly went silent after signing agreements with the Concord. At first, the Concord's actions were subtle. They justified their decisions as pragmatic measures to protect humanity from dangers lurking in the vastness of space. Hostile alien empires, resource shortages, and internal unrest all served as excuses for their increasingly authoritarian policies. Dissenters were labeled extremists or traitors, silenced before they could spread doubt about the Concord's motives. Over time, however, whispers of betrayal began to spread among the colonies. People noticed patterns: missing ships, unexplained, disappearances, and strange treaties signed behind closed doors. One person determined to uncover the truth was Su Jin, a young journalist based on Earth. Known for her relentless pursuit of facts, Su Jin had made a name for herself exposing corruption within corporate conglomerates. When reports surfaced about mysterious dealings between the Concord and the Zyran Collective, a coalition of warlike alien species infamous for their genocidal campaigns, she saw an opportunity to dig deeper. What started as routine investigative work quickly turned into something much bigger. Su Jin spent weeks piecing together fragments of information. She interviewed survivors from colonies abandoned by the Concord, analyzed encrypted communications intercepted by independent hackers, and even infiltrated restricted areas disguised as a maintenance worker. Each clue led her closer to a horrifying revelation. The Concord had struck a secret deal with the Zyrans. In exchange for access to their devastating weaponry, the Concord agreed to hand over several human colonies to the Zyrans as tribute. Entire populations would be sacrificed without warning, their fates decided by cold calculations rather than compassion. But exposing such a massive conspiracy wasn't easy. Every step Su Jin took felt like walking on thin ice. She knew she was being watched. Shadowy figures followed her movements, and anonymous threats appeared in her inbox. Still, she pressed on, driven by a sense of duty to the millions of innocent lives at stake. Finally, after months of painstaking effort, she uncovered irrefutable proof: documents detailing the terms of the agreement, recordings of high-level meetings, and maps marking the locations of targeted colonies. With trembling hands, Su Jin compiled everything into a single report. She planned to release it to the public via multiple channels simultaneously, ensuring it couldn't be suppressed. But before she could act, disaster struck. One night, as she prepared to upload the files, her apartment was raided by armed agents. They moved swiftly and silently, dragging her away before she could fight back. Her laptop, containing all her evidence, disappeared along with her. The next morning, news outlets reported that Su Jin had gone missing, presumed dead in a tragic accident. Official statements urged people not to jump to conclusions, but few believed them. Despite Su Jin's disappearance, traces of her investigation remained. Fragments of data scattered across secure servers hinted at the Concorde's treachery. Independent journalists and activists picked up where she left off, piecing together clues and spreading awareness. Rumors reached Earth, sparking outrage among the populace. Protesters filled the streets, demanding answers and justice. Signs bearing slogans like, "No more lies" and "Stop betraying us," became symbols of resistance. However, the Concord wasn't about to let public opinion undermine their plans. Using their influence over Earth's military forces, they declared martial law, citing security concerns as justification. Troops patrolled cities, arresting anyone suspected of dissent. Media outlets were shut down or censored, leaving citizens isolated and uninformed. Fear gripped society, but so did defiance. Underground networks sprang up, sharing information and organizing acts of rebellion. It was clear that humanity stood at a crossroads: submit to tyranny or rise up against it. Amidst this turmoil, a former soldier named Yong-Woo emerged as a beacon of hope. Once a loyal member of Earth's defense forces, he had grown disillusioned with the Concorde's corruption and resigned in protest. Now, he dedicated himself to fighting back. Drawing upon his military experience and connections, Yong-Woo rallied survivors from targeted colonies, forming a ragtag fleet determined to resist the Concorde's oppression. Among his closest allies were Mira, a skilled pilot with a fiery temper, and Jun Seok, a hacker whose brilliance rivaled Hae-min's. Both had personal reasons for joining the cause. Mira's family had been wiped out when their colony was handed over to the Zirans, leaving her with nothing but anger and a desire for vengeance. Jun Seok, meanwhile, had once worked alongside Hae-min before realizing the true extent of the Concorde's ambitions. Disgusted by what he had helped create, he defected and vowed to undo the damage. Together, they represented a glimmer of hope in an otherwise bleak situation. While the Concorde tightened its grip on humanity, these rebels plotted their next move. They knew the odds were stacked against them, but they also knew one thing for certain: surrender was not an option. Humanity's fate rested in their hands, and they intended to fight until their last breath. As tensions escalated, both sides prepared for conflict. The Concord continued fortifying its strongholds, confident in its technological superiority. Meanwhile, Yong-Woo and his team devised strategies to strike back, targeting key installations and rallying support from disenfranchised groups. The stage was set for a battle that would determine the future of humanity, and perhaps the galaxy itself. For now, though, the struggle simmered beneath the surface, a powder keg waiting to explode. The truth about the Concorde's betrayal had been exposed, but the full consequences were yet to unfold. Lives hung in the balance, and every decision carried weight. Humanity teetered on the edge of destruction, unsure whether salvation or annihilation awaited it. And somewhere in the shadows, Hae-min and Ji-eun plotted their next move, unaware that their actions would soon unleash chaos on a scale neither of them could have imagined. The revelation of the Concorde's betrayal spread like wildfire across the galaxy, igniting outrage and fear among humanity. Protests erupted on Earth and in colonies still under human control. People gathered in streets, squares, and even abandoned warehouses, holding banners that read, "No more lies," and "Save our colonies." Their voices echoed through cities, demanding justice for those who had been sacrificed to the Zirans. Yet, despite their cries, the Concorde showed no signs of backing down. Instead, they tightened their grip on power, using martial law to silence dissent. Earth became a fortress. Troops patrolled every corner, armed with weapons powered by alien technology. Surveillance drones hovered above crowds, scanning faces for signs of rebellion. Dissidents were rounded up in the dead of night, their homes raided without warning. Families disappeared, leaving behind empty houses and unanswered questions. Fear seeped into daily life, turning neighbors into informants and friends into strangers. Even whispers of opposition could lead to arrest, or worse. But resistance persisted. Underground networks sprang up, connecting rebels scattered across the galaxy. Messages were passed through encrypted channels hidden within seemingly innocent data streams. Independent journalists risked their lives to smuggle information out of restricted zones, broadcasting updates to anyone willing to listen. Slowly but surely, these fragmented efforts began to coalesce into something larger, a movement determined to overthrow the Concord and reclaim humanity's future. At the heart of this growing resistance was Yong-Woo, a former soldier whose disillusionment with the Concord had turned into a burning desire for change. He traveled from colony to colony, rallying survivors and building alliances. His charisma and unwavering determination inspired others to join him, even as danger loomed at every turn. Alongside him stood Mira, a pilot whose sharp instincts and fearless nature made her invaluable in both combat and strategy. Her hatred for Jion, the diplomat responsible for handing over her colony to the Zirans, fueled her resolve to fight back. Then there was Jun Seok, the hacker whose brilliance rivaled Haimin's. Once a key figure in the Concord's AI development program, he had defected after realizing the true cost of his work. Guilt weighed heavily on him, but it also drove him to undo the damage he had helped create. With his skills, the Resistance gained access to critical systems, intercepting communications and sabotaging Concord operations. Together, Yong-Woo, Mira, and Jun Seok formed the backbone of the rebellion, each bringing unique strengths to the cause. As the resistance grew stronger, so did tensions between them and the Concord. Sporadic skirmishes broke out near contested regions, with rebel ships clashing against Concord forces. These battles were small but significant, serving as morale boosters for the resistance while exposing cracks in the Concord's facade of invincibility. Rumors circulated that the Concord's leadership was beginning to fracture under pressure, though no concrete evidence emerged. Meanwhile, fragments of Sujin's investigation continued to surface. Hackers uncovered pieces of her encrypted files, piecing together more details about the Concord's deal with the Zirans. Each new discovery added fuel to the fire of rebellion, galvanizing support for the resistance. But perhaps the most shocking revelation came when intercepted transmissions revealed the Concord's ultimate plan: the construction of a superweapon known as the Eclipse Cannon. Powered by stolen alien technology, the cannon was designed to annihilate entire star systems with a single blast. Its purpose? To cement the Concord's dominance over the galaxy and eliminate any remaining threats to their rule. News of the Eclipse Cannon sent shockwaves through the resistance. If completed, the weapon would give the Concord unparalleled power, making rebellion impossible. Worse yet, rumors hinted that the Zirans had ulterior motives for providing the technology. Some believed they intended to use the cannon themselves, once it was operational, wiping out humanity entirely. Whether the Concord realized this or not remained unclear, but one thing was certain: time was running out. Determined to stop the weapon before it could be used, Yong-Woo devised a daring plan. Intelligence reports indicated that the core components of the Eclipse Cannon were being assembled aboard an orbital station controlled by the Concord. This station, codenamed Aegis, served as both a research facility and a military stronghold. Breaking in would be nearly impossible, but Yong-Woo saw no other option. If they could sabotage the cannon's assembly process, they might buy humanity enough time to regroup and strike back. The mission required precision and stealth. Mira volunteered to lead the infiltration team, using her piloting skills to guide a small fleet of cloaked ships past Aegis's defenses. Jun Seok focused on hacking protocols, preparing to disable security systems and create diversions. Meanwhile, Yong-Woo coordinated logistics, ensuring everyone knew their roles and responsibilities. Every detail mattered. Failure meant capture or death. On the eve of the operation, an unexpected twist unfolded. Sujin, presumed dead after her disappearance months earlier, reappeared. She had escaped captivity during a transport mishap and spent weeks evading Concord patrols while trying to reach friendly territory. Though physically weakened and emotionally scarred, she carried vital knowledge about Aegis's layout and defenses. Her return was met with cautious optimism. Many feared she might be a plant sent by the Concord to sabotage the mission. But Yong-Woo trusted her, recognizing the fire in her eyes, the same fire that had driven her to expose the truth in the first place. With Sujin's insights, the team finalized their plans. They would infiltrate Aegis under cover of darkness, using decoy signals to draw attention away from their approach. Once inside, Jun-seok would disable key systems, allowing the rest of the team to move freely. Their primary objective was to destroy the Eclipse cannon's core components, rendering it useless. Secondary objectives included gathering intelligence and freeing prisoners held aboard the station. As the mission commenced, nerves ran high. Mira led the fleet through asteroid fields and debris clouds, expertly avoiding detection. When they reached Aegis, Jun-seok initiated the decoy signals, triggering alarms across the station. Chaos erupted as Concord forces scrambled to respond, giving the infiltration team a narrow window of opportunity. Dressed in stolen uniforms, they slipped aboard undetected, blending into the chaos. Inside, the station buzzed with activity. Scientists worked tirelessly in labs filled with glowing consoles and humming machinery, while soldiers patrolled corridors lined with reinforced walls. The air smelled faintly of ozone, a reminder of the immense power coursing through the facility. Sujin guided the team through maintenance tunnels, avoiding main thoroughfares where patrols were thickest. Her familiarity with the station proved invaluable, helping them navigate its labyrinthine structure. Their journey took them deep into the heart of Aegis, where the Eclipse cannon's core awaited. Massive conduits pulsed with energy, feeding into a central chamber dominated by a towering device bristling with alien tech. It was a sight both awe-inspiring and terrifying, a testament to humanity's ingenuity twisted into a tool of destruction. As the team prepared to sabotage the core, Heyman appeared, flanked by armed guards. Heyman's presence caught everyone off guard. He had been monitoring the situation remotely, deducing the Resistance's plan based on unusual activity patterns. Confronting Jun-seok directly, he appealed to their shared history, urging him to abandon the mission and rejoin the Concord. "We're doing what must be done," Heyman argued, his voice calm but tinged with desperation. "Humanity's survival depends on strength, not sentimentality." Jun-seok hesitated, torn between loyalty to his old mentor and the moral weight of his actions. Memories of their collaboration flooded his mind, long nights spent brainstorming solutions, breakthroughs celebrated with quiet pride. But then he thought of the countless lives lost because of those solutions, the suffering inflicted in the name of progress. Shaking his head, he rejected Heyman's plea. "Strength without compassion is tyranny," he said firmly. "And I won't let you destroy what makes us human." Enraged, Heyman ordered his guards to seize Jun-seok, but the hacker anticipated the move. Activating a pre-programmed virus, he disabled critical systems throughout the station, plunging Aegis into disarray. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and automated defenses went haywire. In the ensuing confusion, Jun-seok managed to disable the Eclipse cannon's core, buying the team precious seconds to escape. However, Heyman escaped as well, vowing revenge. Outside, Mira engaged Ji-yoon in a fierce dogfight above Aegis. Both women piloted sleek fighters equipped with advanced weaponry, exchanging blows amidst asteroid fields and debris. Sparks flew as their ships collided, engines roaring as they maneuvered for advantage. Despite Ji-yoon's skill, Mira gained the upper hand by exploiting a flaw in her opponent's ship design, one she herself had helped create years ago. Cornering Ji-yoon, Mira faced a choice: kill her nemesis or spare her life. After a moment of hesitation, she chose mercy, believing even traitors deserved a chance to face judgment. With the mission accomplished, the team fled Aegis as explosions rocked the station behind them. Though battered and bruised, they had succeeded in delaying the Concord's plans. But victory came at a cost. The Resistance fleet limped away from Aegis, battered but alive. Smoke trailed from damaged ships, and crew members scrambled to patch hull breaches and repair failing systems. Despite their exhaustion, the mood aboard the ships was one of cautious triumph. They had sabotaged the Eclipse cannon's core, buying humanity precious time to regroup and prepare for what lay ahead. Yet no one dared to celebrate. The Concord still controlled vast resources, and Heyman's escape meant their enemy remained as dangerous as ever. Yong-woo stood on the bridge of the flagship, staring at the glowing embers of Aegis in the distance. The station hadn't been destroyed. Its defenses were too strong for that. but the team's sabotage had crippled its ability to complete the cannon. Still, Yongwu knew this victory was fleeting. The conquered would retaliate, and when they did, the resistance needed to be ready. He turned to Mira and Jun Seok, who sat nearby, nursing minor injuries sustained during the mission. Both looked weary, their faces etched with the weight of everything they had endured. "We've slowed them down," Yongwu said, his voice steady but tinged with urgency. "But we're not out of danger yet. Heyman will find a way to fix the cannon. And Ji-Yun will keep pushing her deals with the Zyrans. We need to strike again before they recover." Mira nodded grimly. Her encounter with Ji-Yun above Aegis had left her shaken, though she tried not to show it. For years she had dreamed of vengeance, imagining how she would make Ji-Yun pay for betraying her colony, but when the moment came, she had hesitated and chosen mercy instead. Now, doubts gnawed at her. Had she made the right decision? Would sparing Ji-Yun come back to haunt them? Jun Seok, meanwhile, wrestled with guilt. Sabotaging the Eclipse cannon had been his idea, but seeing Su-Jin sacrifice herself weighed heavily on him. She had trusted him to carry the torch, to finish what she started. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, pale but resolute, as she urged him to leave her behind. "Keep fighting," she had said. Those words echoed in his mind like a mantra, driving him forward even as despair threatened to pull him under. As the fleet retreated to a hidden base on the edge of known space, preparations began for the next phase of the fight. The resistance had grown since their daring raid on Aegis, drawing in new recruits from colonies tired of living in fear. Farmers, engineers, teachers, all had joined the cause, bringing with them whatever skills and resources they could offer. Together they worked tirelessly to fortify their position, knowing full well that the Concord wouldn't rest until they were wiped out. But while the resistance rallied, cracks began to form within the Concord itself. News of the sabotage spread quickly, sowing discord among its leaders. Some argued for immediate retaliation, urging an all-out assault on the rebels' stronghold. Others called for restraint, warning that overextending their forces could leave them vulnerable to further attacks. Heymin and Ji-Yun found themselves at odds, each blaming the other for the failure at Aegis. Heymin viewed Ji-Yun's diplomatic maneuvers with growing suspicion. Her deals with the Zyrans had brought advanced technology into the Concord's arsenal, but at what cost? Rumors circulated that the Zyrans had secretly embedded spies within their ranks, feeding intelligence back to their own commanders. If true, it meant the Concord's plans were compromised from the start. Heymin demanded answers, but Ji-Un dismissed his concerns, accusing him of paranoia. Ji-Un, for her part, questioned Heymin's reliance on brute force. His obsession with the Eclipse cannon struck her as reckless, especially given the weapon's instability. What good was a superweapon if it couldn't be completed in time to crush the rebellion? She pushed for alternative strategies, suggesting they negotiate directly with the Zyrans to secure additional support. But Heymin scoffed at the idea, calling her naive. "The Zyrans are predators," he snapped. "They'll devour us the moment we show weakness." Their arguments grew louder and more frequent, fracturing the Concord's leadership. Lower-ranking officers watched nervously as tensions escalated, unsure whom to follow. Morale plummeted, and whispers of mutiny began to circulate. For the first time in years, cracks appeared in the Concord's iron grip on humanity. Meanwhile, the Zyrans watched from afar, biding their time. Their leader, Vorthak, a towering alien with skin like molten metal and eyes that glowed with cold malice, had grown impatient with the Concord's delays. When reports reached him about the sabotage at Aegis, he summoned Heymin and Ji-Un to a meeting aboard his flagship. The gathering took place in a dimly lit chamber, where holographic displays projected images of conquered worlds and smoldering ruins. Vorthak's voice boomed through the room, demanding explanations. "You promised us dominance over this galaxy," Vorthak growled, his gaze piercing through Heymin and Ji-Un. "Instead, you squabble like children while your enemies grow stronger. Explain yourselves, or face the consequences." Heymin stammered, trying to justify the setback at Aegis, but Vorthak cut him off with a dismissive wave. "Enough!" he snarled. "Your incompetence has cost us valuable time. Consider this your final warning. Deliver the Eclipse cannon or suffer the same fate as those who oppose us. With that, the meeting ended, leaving Hai Min and Ji Yun shaken. As they returned to their stronghold, both realized the precariousness of their situation. The Xyrans weren't allies. They were predators waiting to pounce, and if the Concord failed to deliver, humanity would become just another casualty in their quest for galactic conquest. Back at the Resistance base, Yong-Woo and his team analyzed intercepted transmissions detailing Vorthak's ultimatum. The news confirmed their worst fears. The Xyrans intended to use the Eclipse cannon against humanity once it was operational. If the Concord succeeded in completing the weapon, billions would die. Not just rebels, but innocent civilians across the galaxy. "This changes everything," Yong-Woo said during a strategy session. "We can't just focus on stopping the Concord anymore, we have to stop the Xyrans too." Mira clenched her fists, her anger reigniting. "So now we're fighting two enemies instead of one? How are we supposed to do that?" Jun Seok leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. "Maybe we don't have to fight them both at once. If we can expose the Xyrans' true intentions to the Concord, it might drive a wedge between them. Without their support, the Concord won't stand a chance." It was a risky plan, but it was also their best shot. The team spent days poring over data, searching for evidence of the Xyrans' betrayal. Finally, Jun Seok uncovered something crucial: encrypted messages detailing secret negotiations between Vorthak and high-ranking Xyran officials. These messages revealed that the Xyrans never intended to honor their agreement with the Concord. Once the Eclipse cannon was built, they planned to turn it against humanity, eradicating every last trace of their existence. Armed with this information, the Resistance launched a bold operation to broadcast the truth across the galaxy. Using hacked communication relays, they transmitted the decrypted messages to every colony, ship, and outpost still loyal to the Concord. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Colonists who had once supported the Concord turned against them, outraged by the revelation. Even some of the Concord's own soldiers began questioning their orders, unwilling to serve masters who would sell them out to genocidal aliens. For Hai Min and Ji-Eun, the fallout was catastrophic. Their authority crumbled as distrust spread. Throughout their ranks, protests erupted on Earth, with crowds chanting slogans like "No more lies" and "Down with traitors." Martial law, once a tool of control, became impossible to enforce as dissent spiraled out of control. For the first time in years, humanity began to rise up, not just against the Concord, but against anyone who sought to oppress them. Amidst the chaos, Yong-Woo led the Resistance in a series of coordinated strikes against key Concord installations. With morale low and resources stretched thin, the Concord struggled to mount an effective defense. One by one, their strongholds fell, freeing countless prisoners and securing vital supplies for the rebellion. Each victory bolstered the Resistance's numbers, drawing in more allies eager to join the fight. But the battle wasn't without cost. Lives were lost, ships destroyed, and wounds inflicted that would take years to heal. Mira bore the scars of countless dogfights, her body battered but her spirit unbroken. Jun Seok pushed himself to the brink of exhaustion, hacking systems and disabling defenses with relentless determination. And Yong-Woo carried the weight of leadership on his shoulders, making hard decisions that often kept him awake at night. Through it all, they pressed on, driven by a shared belief in humanity's potential for redemption. They fought not just to survive, but to reclaim what the Concord had tried to destroy: hope, compassion, and the courage to stand up for what was right. As the tide turned in their favor, the Resistance prepared for the final showdown. The Concord's stronghold loomed ahead, its defenses formidable but weakened by internal strife. Knowing this was their chance to end the conflict once and for all, Yong-Woo addressed his team, his voice filled with quiet resolve. "This is it," he said. "Everything we've done has led us here. No matter what happens, remember why we're fighting. For humanity, for justice, for a future worth believing in. Let's finish this." With those words, the fleet surged forward, ready to face whatever awaited them. The battle for redemption had begun. The Resistance fleet approached the Concord's stronghold with a mix of determination and dread. It was a fortress in space, bristling with weapons and surrounded by layers of defenses. For years, it had stood as a symbol of oppression, a monument to Hai-Min and Ji-Eun's vision of humanity's future. Now, it would become the stage for the final battle. The stakes were higher than ever before. If the resistance failed, the Concorde would regain its footing, complete the Eclipse cannon, and unleash devastation on a galactic scale. Yong-Woo stood at the helm of the flagship, his eyes fixed on the glowing silhouette of the stronghold ahead. Behind him, Mi-Ra and Jun-Seok worked tirelessly, coordinating their attack plan. Every ship in the fleet had been outfitted with scavenged weapons and improvised upgrades, but they were still outnumbered and outgunned. Victory depended not just on firepower, but on strategy and timing. As the fleet moved into position, Jun-Seok intercepted a transmission from inside the stronghold. It was chaotic, filled with panicked voices shouting about an unexpected development. "Something's wrong," he said, his fingers flying across the console. "The Zirans are here, inside the station." Mi-Ra frowned, her hands gripping the controls of her fighter. "What do you mean, inside? Weren't they supposed to be waiting outside?" Jun-Seok shook his head, his expression grim. "No. They've launched a full-scale invasion. Looks like Vorthak decided not to wait any longer. He's taking matters into his own hands." The news sent shockwaves through the resistance. The Zirans' betrayal wasn't just theoretical anymore, it was happening right in front of them. Their alien ships swarmed around the stronghold, cutting through Concorde forces with brutal efficiency. Plasma beams sliced through hulls, and explosions lit up the darkness of space. The Concorde's soldiers, already weakened by internal strife, crumbled under the assault. For a moment, Yong-Woo considered retreating. Attacking now would mean walking straight into a war zone, risking everything they had fought so hard to achieve. But then he realized something crucial. This was their chance. With the Concorde and the Zirans locked in combat, neither side could focus fully on defending the Eclipse cannon. If they acted quickly, they might be able to finish what they started at Aegis. "Change of plans," Yong-Woo announced over the comms. "We're going in. Use the chaos to our advantage. Hit them hard and fast. Disable their defenses and get us inside." The fleet surged forward, weaving through the battlefield like a swarm of insects. Mi-Ra led the charge, her fighter, darting between enemy ships as she unleashed barrages of missiles. Her movements were precise, almost artistic, each twist and turn calculated to avoid incoming fire while delivering maximum damage. Around her, other pilots followed suit, their smaller vessels proving surprisingly effective against the larger, slower targets. Meanwhile, Jun-Seok worked his magic from afar. Using hacked systems, he created diversions by disabling key components of the stronghold's defense grid. Automated turrets went offline, leaving gaps in the protective perimeter. Shield generators flickered and died, exposing vulnerable sections of the structure. Each success gave the fleet a new opening, allowing them to push deeper into enemy territory. Inside the stronghold, all hell had broken loose. Ziran soldiers stormed through corridors, slaughtering anyone who resisted. Their metallic bodies shimmered in the dim light, their glowing eyes scanning for prey. Concorde troops tried to fight back, but they were no match for the invaders' superior strength and weaponry. Blood painted the walls, and screams echoed through the halls. Hai-Min and Ji-Eun found themselves trapped in the command center, surrounded by a dwindling group of loyalists. Both looked pale, their usual confidence replaced by fear. "This is your fault," Hai-Min spat, glaring at Ji-Eun. "You trusted those monsters, and now look where we are." Ji-Eun shot back, her voice trembling with anger. "And whose idea was it to build the cannon in the first place? If you hadn't wasted months tinkering with that thing, maybe we wouldn't be in this mess." Their argument was cut short by the sound of heavy footsteps approaching. Moments later, the door burst open, revealing a squad of Ziran warriors led by Vorthak himself. His towering frame filled the room, his molten skin gleaming ominously in the artificial light. Without a word, he raised a clawed hand and gestured toward Hai-Min and Ji-Eun. Two Zirans stepped forward, seizing the pair and dragging them to their knees. "You have failed me," Vorthak growled, his voice low and menacing. "Your incompetence has cost us dearly. Consider this your punishment." Before either could respond, the Zirans executed the remaining Concorde officers, leaving only Hai-Min and Ji-Eun alive, for now. Bound and helpless, they watched as Vorthak turned his attention to completing the Eclipse cannon. "The weapon will serve its purpose," he declared. but not for you. Back outside, the Resistance fleet had reached the heart of the stronghold. Mira led a team of ground forces through breached sections of the outer hull, fighting their way toward the chamber housing the cannon's core. Along the way, they encountered both Zyran patrols and scattered remnants of the Concorde's forces. Battles erupted in tight quarters, the air thick with smoke and the acrid smell of plasma burns. Despite the odds, the rebels pressed on, driven by desperation and resolve. When they finally reached the core chamber, they found it heavily guarded. Zyran engineers worked frantically to repair the damage caused during the sabotage at Aegis, their tools sparking as they reconnected conduits and recalibrated systems. In the center of the room stood the cannon itself, a monstrous device pulsing with energy, its alien design both beautiful and horrifying. "We don't have much time," Yongwu said, his voice tense. "If they finish repairs, it's over. We need to destroy it, now." Jun-Seok nodded, pulling out a small device from his pack. "I can overload the core, but I'll need a few minutes to set it up. Someone needs to keep the Zyrans busy while I work." Without hesitation, Mira volunteered. "I'll hold them off. Just give me a clear shot." Yongwu hesitated, knowing the risks involved. But there was no time to argue. "Do what you have to," he said finally. "We're counting on you." Mira didn't waste a second. She charged into the fray, her blaster firing rapidly as she took down one Zyran after another. Her movements were fluid, her aim deadly accurate. Though vastly outnumbered, she fought with a ferocity that caught even the aliens off guard. Sparks flew as her shots ricocheted off armored plating, forcing the Zyrans to divert their attention, away from Jun-Seok. Behind her, Jun-Seok worked feverishly, attaching wires and adjusting settings on the explosive device. Sweat dripped down his face as he muttered calculations under his breath. The hum of the cannon grew louder, vibrating through the floor beneath his feet. He knew he was running out of time. In the midst of the chaos, Vorthak appeared, his massive form casting a shadow over the room. His glowing eyes locked onto Jun-Seok, and he let out a guttural roar. "Stop him!" he commanded, pointing a clawed finger. Shiran warriors surged toward Jun-Seok, but Mira intercepted them, planting herself firmly between them and her teammate. "You want him?" she shouted, raising her blaster. "Come and get me!" Her defiance bought Jun-Seok the precious seconds he needed. With a final adjustment, he activated the device, triggering a countdown sequence. "It's done!" he yelled. "We need to go, now!" The team retreated as fast as they could, dodging blasts and leaping over debris. Behind them, the cannon's core began to destabilize, its glow intensifying until it became almost blinding. Alarms blared throughout the stronghold, warning of imminent destruction. Vorthak roared in fury, realizing too late that his plans were unraveling. Abandoning the cannon, he ordered his forces to withdraw, boarding his flagship as explosions rocked the station. The Resistance fleet followed suit, fleeing the area just as the core reached critical mass. A blinding flash lit up the void of space as the Eclipse cannon detonated, consuming the stronghold and everything within it. Shockwaves rippled outward, scattering ships and debris like leaves in a storm. When the light faded, nothing remained of the Concorde's once mighty fortress, except drifting wreckage and silence. On board the flagship, the Resistance crew watched in stunned awe. They had done it. They had destroyed the cannon and dealt a crippling blow to both the Concorde and the Zyrans. Exhaustion washed over them, but so did relief. For the first time in years, hope seemed possible, yet as they surveyed the aftermath, Yongwu couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. The Zyrans were still out there, their thirst for conquest unquenched, and though the Concorde had fallen, its legacy of betrayal lingered, a reminder of how easily humanity could lose its way, but for now they had won. Humanity had survived another day, thanks to the courage and sacrifice of those willing to fight for its future. As the fleet limped towards safety, Yongwu turned to his team, his voice filled with quiet pride. "We did good today," he said, "but tomorrow is another battle. Let's rest tonight and prepare for whatever comes next." With those words, the fleet disappeared into the stars, carrying the hopes of a fractured but resilient humanity. The destruction of the Eclipse cannon marked a turning point, but it was not the end. The Resistance fleet, battered and weary, limped toward a hidden base nestled within the asteroid belt. Their victory had come at great cost. Ships lost, lives sacrificed, and wounds that would take years to heal. Yet, despite the scars, there was a sense of cautious optimism in the air. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, humanity dared to dream of a future free from oppression. Yong-Woo stood on the bridge of the flagship, staring out at the stars. His mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. The Concorde's stronghold was gone, its leaders either dead or scattered. Heyman and Jion had vanished during the chaos, their fates unknown. Without them, the Concorde's grip on humanity had crumbled, leaving behind a power vacuum. It was up to the Resistance to step into that void and guide humanity toward a better path. But rebuilding wouldn't be easy. The damage inflicted by the Concorde ran deep, both physically and emotionally. Entire colonies had been wiped out, their populations erased without mercy. Survivors carried the weight of loss, their trust in leadership shattered. Even those who had joined the Resistance harbored doubts about whether humanity deserved redemption after everything it had done, or allowed to be done in its name. Jun-seok sat nearby, his face pale but determined. He had spent hours poring over data salvaged from the stronghold, piecing together fragments of the Concorde's plans. What he found disturbed him. Evidence suggested that the Concorde had been experimenting on humans, using neural manipulation techniques to create obedient soldiers and spies. These experiments had left countless victims broken, their minds irreparably damaged. Jun-seok clenched, his fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "We can't let this happen again," he muttered under his breath. "Never." Mi-Ra, leaning against the wall with her arms crossed, shared his sentiment. Her hatred for Ji-un still burned, though it had softened slightly since sparing the diplomat's life. She understood now that vengeance alone wouldn't fix anything. It would only perpetuate the cycle of violence. But forgiveness? That felt impossible. Instead, she focused on channeling her rage into something productive, vowing to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. As the fleet docked at the hidden base, word spread quickly about their success. Refugees and survivors poured in, seeking shelter and answers. Many had heard rumors of the Resistance's victory and hoped for a chance to start anew. Yong-Woo addressed them directly, speaking with honesty and compassion. "We've taken back control," he said, his voice steady but warm. "But we need your help to build something better, something stronger. Together, we can make sure no one ever betrays humanity again." His words resonated deeply, sparking a wave of cooperation and unity. Engineers worked alongside farmers, teachers collaborated with soldiers, and former enemies became allies. Slowly but surely, the base transformed into a thriving community, a symbol of resilience in the face of destruction. Meanwhile, remnants of the Concorde attempted to regroup, clinging to whatever scraps of power they could salvage. Some tried to rally support, promising reforms and redemption. Others resorted to piracy, preying on vulnerable colonies to survive. But their efforts were met with resistance, not just from Yong-Woo's fleet, but from ordinary citizens tired of being exploited. Communities banded together, forming militias to defend themselves and root out lingering threats. It was messy and imperfect, but it worked. Haimin and Jion remained elusive, their whereabouts unknown. Rumors circulated that they had fled aboard a stolen ship heading for uncharted regions of the galaxy. Some believed they sought refuge with alien factions willing to offer asylum. Others claimed they were plotting revenge. Regardless, both figures had become ghosts of the past, symbols of betrayal rather than individuals. Few cared to chase them down. Their focus was on healing and rebuilding. The Xyrans, however, posed a greater threat. Though their invasion of the stronghold had failed, they showed no signs of retreating. Vorthak's forces regrouped, consolidating their strength as they prepared for another assault. Intelligence reports indicated that they planned to target human colonies directly, viewing them as weak points ripe for conquest. Fear rippled through the galaxy once more, threatening to undo the fragile progress humanity had made. Yong-Woo knew they couldn't fight the Xyrans alone. Humanity needed allies, alien species willing to stand against aggression and tyranny. Drawing on lessons learned from the Concorde's failures, he sent envoys to neighboring civilizations, offering peace and partnership instead of domination. To everyone's surprise, some accepted. The Velkari, a peaceful race known for their advanced medical technology, agreed to share resources and knowledge. The Krylos, fierce warriors who valued honor above all else, pledged military support in exchange for mutual defense pacts. These alliances strengthened humanity's position, creating a united front capable of standing toe-to-toe with the Xyrans. Preparations for war continued alongside efforts to rebuild. Ships were repaired and upgraded, weapons systems tested and refined. Training programs turned civilians into soldiers, teaching them how to fight not just for survival, but for justice. Morale soared as people embraced their roles in shaping a new future. Stories of heroes like Sujin inspired generations to come, reminding them of the importance of courage, compassion, and integrity. When the Xyrans finally struck, humanity was ready. Their fleet clashed in a massive battle near the edge of known space, where stars faded into darkness and nebulae glowed faintly in the distance. Plasma beams streaked across the void, lighting up the battlefield with bursts of color. Human ships flew alongside Velkari cruisers and Krylos fighters, their combined strength overwhelming the invaders. Mira led daring strafing runs, her skills unmatched even by the Xyrans' best pilots. Junseok coordinated tactics from the command center, using hacked systems to disable enemy vessels mid-combat. At the heart of the conflict, Yongwu faced Vorthak himself. The Xyran leader had boarded a massive flagship, intent on crushing humanity personally. When the two ships locked onto each other, Yongwu led a boarding party, determined to confront the alien tyrant head-on. The corridors of the Xyran vessel were dark and oppressive, lined with pulsating veins of organic material. Every step echoed ominously, every shadow seemed alive. Finally, they reached the command chamber, where Vorthak awaited them. Towering over his surroundings, he radiated menace, his molten skin glowing brighter with each passing moment. "You are persistent," he growled, his voice reverberating through the room. "But persistence will not save you." Yongwu stepped forward, meeting the alien's gaze without flinching. "Maybe not," he replied, "but neither will fear." The battle that followed was intense and brutal. Vorthak's raw power matched Yongwu's determination, each blow reverberating through the chamber. Sparks flew as metal clashed against claw, and walls cracked under the force of their struggle. In the end, it wasn't strength that decided the outcome. It was strategy. Yongwu lured Vorthak into a trap, exploiting weaknesses in the Xyran leader's armor. With a final decisive strike, he delivered a killing blow, ending the tyrant's reign of terror. Vorthak's death signaled the collapse of the Xyran forces. Leaderless and demoralized, they retreated, abandoning their plans for galactic domination. Humanity emerged victorious, its resolve unbroken despite the horrors endured. As news of the victory spread, celebrations erupted across the galaxy. Colonies lit up with fireworks, and songs of triumph filled the air. In the aftermath, humanity began the long process of healing. Reforms swept through governments, ensuring transparency and accountability. Memorials were erected to honor those who had fallen, their sacrifices never forgotten. Schools taught lessons about the Concord's betrayal, emphasizing the dangers of sacrificing morality for power. Ji-un eventually resurfaced, captured while attempting to flee disguised as a refugee. Found guilty of her crimes, she chose to dedicate her remaining years to rebuilding what she had helped destroy. Her transformation, though controversial, served as a reminder that redemption was possible, even for those who had committed the gravest sins. Haemin disappeared entirely, vanishing into the depths of space. Some believed he had died, others whispered that he lived on, searching for absolution. Either way, his legacy lingered as a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happened when ambition outweighed empathy. Under Yongwu's leadership, humanity looked to the stars once more. Lessons learned from the Concord's betrayal prompted sweeping changes, ensuring such atrocities would never happen again. Hope burned brightly, a testament to resilience in the face of destruction on a galactic scale. And so, humanity pressed onward, determined to forge a future worthy of its potential. The scars of betrayal remained, but so did the promise of renewal. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they faced them together, united by a shared belief in a brighter tomorrow.